Welcome, 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 everyone, to another beautiful conversation. Today we have Megan Macdonald and hopefully Fiona Gardner will be able to join in, but she's having some tech issues. And this is a joining of the plasma magicians, the water magicians. So thank you so much for joining me again today, Megan.
Oh, yeah. No, thanks for the invitation to chat again. And this is what we've both said so many times. We like having a conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are themes that we're both thinking about or someone has brought up or that are just in the air, and those are great to jump in on some good themes, but also spontaneity in a conversation and just letting it go where it happens to be ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's part of what is interesting in the moment and just following the moment. Ooh, there we go.
Hi.
Yay!
Finally.
Welcome, Fiona. Yay!
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining us. You and Megan haven't met yet? I don't think so.
No.
So it's so cool. I really want to have these like regularly, like not a drop-in clinic, but more like a salon style gathering, and just to talk, because I don't have anybody, but I mean I know I have Lee around to talk about with this kind of stuff, but it's not the same.
A little bit more global community. So yeah, and then also you're just having people in different places too, right? We don't have to be in the same place on the globe to have these conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
So Fiona, nice to meet you. I'm Megan Macdonald. I've
Megan.
seen some of your video. I've been following you on Instagram for a while.
Your name's just like so familiar. Did you do Brother Sage's training?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I
Yep.
think that's where I've heard of you through there.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
nice to meet you.
You too. And I was reviewing a little bit of video before. I had an interview discussion with Amanda Vollmer, and then like the next week she talked to you. So up on her website, it's her talk with me and then her talk with you are next to each other, and
Cool.
it's really fun. So I was like, good. I need to watch this video because I hadn't seen that yet, and so it was nice to look into that a little bit. But I couldn't remember. Are you living in the UK?
No, I'm in California. So I've been in California now for like 21 years. But yeah, my
Wow.
homeland is over the pond, yeah, for sure. And
Yeah, I was there for 6 years. So I always
oh right, whereabouts?
London.
Oh, okay. And you
No.
well, agree that I don't, the same for myself, the people I get to talk to is kind of the occasional client, like my family are like, they come to me with stuff and it's always the same solution. So they're just like, oh, it's always about, so I don't really have like that many people to like share and talk to and bounce ideas off and just, things that like even with just looking at urine for so long under the microscope, and my head is full of all the different things, and I don't have other people, to bounce my ideas or the thoughts or things, because we all have like pieces of like gold and information, like to share that just like,
Literally.
links it all together. And every time I like to talk to somebody, I'm like, oh my gosh, like urine just links in right there. That's what you're talking about, and you're talking about physics, but you're talking about
Yeah.
urine too, so yeah, so we all have a bit of the puzzle.
And I mean, I ended up having to basically start a community so that I could talk to people and teach people what I know so that I could have people to talk to, which has been great. But I also didn't see that coming. So that was part of it, right? Because you had said to Amanda, you've been working with, I usually say Shavambu or Orin, and so we can use all the words
Yeah.
here, plasma.
Yeah, I've healed my relationship with all of the words. So I used to have a problem with urine, but I don't anymore. We can even
Yeah.
just say it.
Yeah, I don't
you would
yeah, sorry, go on. You were
Oh no, it's just a question of like it's about 3 years going on four.
Yeah, coming into my
Yeah,
fourth year now. Yeah.
yeah. And Anna, you're on year
I'm
three.
coming into my third year
Yeah.
soon here, so two and a
Okay.
half, over 2.5 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like
And
went hard right from the very
yeah,
beginning. Like
yeah,
I wasn't just rubbing it on. I
Mhm.
went like full all in. Like how
yeah,
many different ways can I get it?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I'm coming up to 12 years in
That's
Oh,
February.
wow.
blows my mind.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
But that like 12 years ago, there was no internet to help me. Like I researched it and I found the same article copied and pasted on like six people's websites, and that was it. Like there was, and I wasn't trying to do scientific research. I was just trying to find people who knew something,
right.
you know. Now I'm doing scientific research and I'm looking at like heavy metals and stem cells and all this other stuff, and it's really interesting, but I wasn't doing that back then. And I think that's part of what, it's that craving when people come to me too now and they want to talk about urine therapy, or they want to ask about how they get into it, or something's coming up. They always sort of exhale. It's like, oh, I can say the things, and I can just, it's normal. Everything that they're saying, I think, is normal. And
Yeah.
so they just relax. And so there's that piece of this, which is simultaneously nobody's business. I always say it's bathroom behavior. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't need
Right.
to inform other people of what you're doing. It's not necessary. You're not lying by not telling people what you're doing. But on the other hand, it's so amazing that you want to share it. And so being able to share it in a receptive audience and is just so joyous. It's so
Totally.
fulfilling. Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying earlier, Fiona, and mirroring what you were also saying, Megan, I've been reading this book for a while now about facial reflexology. And the
Oh,
book that I'm reading, he keeps on referring in there to the golden elixir, because he's got all this Chinese training background that he's drawing from. And that just like got me thinking. So then I started looking like, hey, what are these texts that he's reading that he's getting this information from? Because the golden elixir to me, well, we all know what I'm thinking of. And so I just found this book, and in there, this is like foundations of internal alchemy. I mean, that's already pointing to it here. And there's a quote in here, the saying, inverting the course generates an immortal. Inverting the course. Inverting the course. That's like totally plasma cycling. You're inverting the course. The flow
Yeah.
is going out and you're bringing it back in to flow through the channels again. And I mean, it's just like so obvious to me that that was part of it.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely. I had a conversation this week with, I was at a psychic fair. I was supposed to be reading oracle cards, but it was a really nasty weather evening. And so there were like a few people, and then it petered out. And so all the practitioners started talking to each other because we didn't have clients. And I started talking about Shivambu, and they were they were ready to hear it, the open-minded people. But that was one of the things, just as you're saying that like it's so obvious once you see it. And I did the whole explanation of like in the womb, how we need it. If we don't pee in the womb, the fetus dies. Our urine goes before us. It brings us into being. Our urine helps form our body before we're even us. Like all of those pieces. And you could see the light bulbs going on. You could see that like, oh, it's so obvious now.
Yeah. And Fiona, I wanted to chime in here because I found when I heard you talking with Amanda Vollmer about how the sacred geometry it's like the seed of it is present in people that don't practice this, and the geometry is like, comes into its bloom in the people that do cycle their plasma through. So can Can you expand on that or say it better than I just
Oh
did?
gosh, I don't know if I say it any better, but I would like to follow on with the gold, because that I only finished like a couple of nights ago because I've had this conversation with a few different people about gold and urine. And I just put together like my whole like new slideshow that I've been because like the last 3 or 4 months I've been doing this whole experiment with a change in water, and the whole gold thing keeps coming up around this. Um, so yeah, so I just wanted to
Go
touch
go
in with
ahead
that.
with that. Whatever you want to
Oh,
share.
well,
Yeah,
and
that
just
sounds
to
super
follow
interesting.
with the what you were saying about in vitro, when we're in the womb, like something, because I was down journeying in that space too with this whole gold narrative, and the water, because I really feel it's linked into also the not just drinking urine, but also what the quality of the water we're drinking and what water we're actually drinking. So also what the baby is able, because my whole story is I don't drink as much water. In fact, I kind of stopped drinking all like the waters that were out there. All the waters that, well, there's so many, isn't there? So many different types of waters and so many different devices and wands and things that you can do for the waters, these um, the planetary waters, I'll call them. So I changed to drinking a very specific deuterium depleted water because I was finding out that this water was very similar to the water that the body produces, as well as the urine. So I was like, because I'm an extremist and always wanting to experiment, I thought I'm going to experiment with this water. So that's what I've kind of been doing for the last 3 months. But going back to the baby and drinking urine and the not wanting to drink water anymore, I was kind of like, because my mind and my thoughts hadn't caught up yet, but my body was saying, no, don't need that. But my mind's like, oh, you've got to drink water, da 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 da. So that slowly caught up, and learning that the baby, when we're in the womb, as a baby, we learn how to regulate. We learn how to regulate that blood flow with the intake of urine. So we're already wired, coded that way with our urine, ingesting it, to then the body learns how to regulate. So it learns how to regulate that intake of water. So I was thinking that, I was like, yeah, because that's what we're doing when we're taking in our urine. The body's learning how to regulate its blood volume so that it doesn't need to take in all this supposed gallon of water a day that we're supposed to be drinking and consuming, and I don't even drink a gallon of urine a day, I'm not at that point anymore. It's like, the sacred geometry, I feel that, like, so once we've alchemized, our sacred waters, and it's gone through the vortex of the heart and it's come out, it's so negatively charged that when it goes back in, that information, and I really feel that all those elements, like the golds, the silvers, all the other contents, which Megan, I'm really curious, when you said you've been looking into heavy metals and stem cells, did her link
Oh, what
freeze?
happened?
I think her face, everything froze, so I wasn't sure
Oh, bummer.
what happened
She'll
then.
come back in.
Sacred geometry, or should I just wait?
Yeah, we can just give it a second here. Oh, here we go. She's back.
Hi.
Did you
Internet
lose
dropped. Yeah, it just completely disappeared. Internet just disappeared for about 30 seconds. There we
Weird.
go.
Well, we have a lot
Okay.
of weird things going on with it being the election. We've had so many power outages. Phone lines are supposedly down to the banks and all kinds of interference. So,
Yeah. Well, even this morning, this is a slightly different thing, but I had this beautiful black candle that a friend of mine made with ash and beeswax, and I'd been saving it for Halloween, Samhain, that veil. And two friends of mine, we sat down on Sunday, and we burned it, and it was the most beautiful, clean burn, not a drip, nothing.
Wow.
This beautiful black candle, the whole thing. We got about halfway through it, and then because it was burning very slowly, I brought it back, and this morning it said, "Light me, light me. I want to be, do something." It's everywhere. The energy of this morning, the candle's like, I'm trying to help. It's weird out there.
So you had a question for Megan, Fiona? Sorry,
So
just
yes,
to
so I
roll
don't know
back.
where you lost what we were talking about.
Oh, just baby in the womb. We're regulating our blood flow, and I was like, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. We don't need to drink as much, and I don't need to drink as much water either.
Right. Yes. So we're doing that. So there's all kinds of because you mentioned before about the research you've done in like heavy metals and stem cells. That's definitely something I'd like to hear more about. But we were talking about, so just linking up the sacred geometry. Why? Because my question was like, why, like in urine drinkers, is there like an explosion of like sacred geometry? There seems to be connection and access to more of the subtle energies that we are that we inhabit and that is externally in our environment. So in a way, the antennas, I feel, we just become more, I don't even like to say the word more, we're just kind of tuned in a certain way with those subtle energies. So for me, I always like say, well, it's kind of like it switches on. I like to use words like technology because I like to I don't know
Yes.
why, because that's kind of like how I was experiencing it and feeling it, that this reintroduction actually wakes up dormancy, it switches on older technology, it's creating an environment and a terrain for other higher organisms or energies to be able to move within that fluid structure, because there's more of a voltage potential, there's just more energy. So the geometry is just more. The geometry is structured. It's just structured.
It's available.
It's available. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things too, like the negative ion charge, we're actually taking electricity, we're recharging our battery, all of those things. And I was saying to Anna before too, like you were saying, you see this in the sense people are different, their cellular structure becomes different, their DNA changes, like all these things change.
Yeah.
And I felt that years ago, but again, I had nobody was saying it. I was just feeling, I'm like, I'm different. I'm making different choices. My body's showing up differently. My thought patterns are different. And I likened it to other spiritual work that I do, where whether I'm working on past life stuff or ancestral stuff or whatever, and you finish some of that and you're like, whoa, I'm different. I just did a thing. Something's left me. And that's how I felt with using the Shivambu. Like I've said to people now, I did nothing but fresh for 5 years because I didn't know that I could be using age. So I just did all this fresh every day. And now when I look back, I go, oh, it washed me. Like it washed the cells. It cleaned things out, and I wasn't in a rush. I didn't really know where I was going. But the other thing that I wanted to mention, I've said to Anna before we started, in 2020, a group of people where I live started meditating together once a week. And the person who hosted has been channeling sacred geometry for 40 years, bringing it in, and then actually creating physical forms for people to interact with and meditate with. And so I started meditating on a weekly basis with different sacred geometry forms on top of doing the Shivambu work. And one of the pieces that this friend of mine has created is this one. And this I now have hanging in my living room. I've been living with this for about 2 years, and it's a very gentle form. It's a very beautiful form, but I have this in my room. And he talks about how these forms actually, they bring in energy and they change it so that it's more available. But this is his new one. This one, he's been working with, but I also have been working with it now. There's only a couple of people who have them because he just did it. And this one, the message he keeps getting is that it is interacting with and wants to do things with plasma. And that it has an alignment with, it wants to be in water, it wants to be around crystal bowls, it wants to be involved, it has something to do with plasma and with removing sediment. And that's such an interesting thing that right at the moment where humanity might be ready to go into more plasma states,
Yeah. Hey?
and that we're
And
more aware of it, this is also the first time he's had a form say anything, and he didn't even know anything about it. As soon as he said that, I started sending him a bunch of the stuff on fourth phase water and easy water and all of this. Like, he knew that it was our urine was our blood plasma. He knew that part. But I just find that fascinating.
speaking of humanity, we just had a question in the live stream chat. Do you believe humanity will eventually have to adopt Shivambu?
It's our, on the one hand, we're all born from it. We have. It's our birthright. How many things that are our birthright have been taken away from us? So it's one of the things that we always have free will to come back to it or not.
Yeah.
But the ease with which, especially you two, because you come to it more recently, the ease that you both report in terms of like, it makes your life easier, better, less fear, more expansive, better health. Like, why, on some level, could it not be part of the evolution? But
Yeah, hey?
what about you two? What would you say?
Fiona, you go.
De- if that person's definitely open to it, yes. So what I find is that people are kind of like have tried so many things, and they try things for a while and they feel like great results, which happens, but then they find themselves back in that place of, well, this thing's not working anymore. And what I find with people who've tried so many things, that they're a lot more open. So they're like, I'll try anything at this point. Okay, tell me what to do. So I
Yeah.
just noticed that there is a wide a spectrum of openness of what people will explore. So what I try to do is working with clients is to really just starting off slow, because again, I was an extremist, and I go in, do it like you. Tell me every orifice and every way and everything I can do with urine, and I'm gonna do it, So it's just like, to support people with that consistency, because I do feel, even though like, it's something that's freely available and people say, just drink it. Everybody, what I feel when I'm working with somebody, has a specific route that's easier for them to drop in and
Yeah.
feel that, I can be successful at this, because that's what, like, I find some people are like, going hard, and I did all that, and I had all this like healing reactions, and I don't want to go there again, so to ease in certain ways of like, okay, what's this person's easiest route in for them? Is it just working with their skin because there's an aversion, so they can work on them levels, so that the beliefs, the patterns, the habits, because as we know, everything about our life changes. Everything about going to the bathroom to pee, everything changes. I carry an empty jar with me. I don't carry a jar of water anymore. I'm like, okay, gotta take an empty jar out with me, just in case, I'm somewhere, so I can pee in my jar. So our lives and
Totally.
habits and everything changes, and I do feel it's a way for us to tap back in to taking back our sovereignty too, because we're talking about that, the way it works with our kidneys, that level of fear that shifts and changes so much that we can become empowered again about our life and empowered about our choices. And it kind of just opens up the space of just more inquiry about our bodies and how our body actually works and how it's supported. So that's like one thing I was like, with working with this whole thing about gold, that our body makes gold, and seeing it in the urine, this goldness. And so that was where I was like, so this is like really extreme. I'm going to jump right back into our past, as because I believe like the trees were a lot bigger than they used to be. Our world was very different at some points, and I feel that the trees were really significant in the filtration of water. And and the movement of water. And I don't feel that we have that as much on our planet anymore with the way we've just polluted and destroyed it. So I felt like that back in the day, there was probably fountains from trees that the water, and this is what I'm putting together, this is what I am totally making up, that had less deuterium in it, that it was more attuned to our bodies, because of the images I see in urine are very nature based. They're so in line with the trees and how the trees grow and how the trees form and all the other things that live within the trees or grow with the tree is right there in the water. It's like this whole story of nature and the trees. So this is where like the whole gold was coming in, because then I only learned about this from somebody sent me information to go and listen to this guy called Stellium 7. And I listened to one of his interviews, and he was actually, it was the one interview, and he said the trees create gold, make gold. And I just went, oh my God, this is it. He's like talking about it too. So talking about like urine, plasma, gold, all these things I think are like, they're just getting more expanded into our collective. And I feel like when you start drinking urine, that coherent field becomes so much stronger that we impact the fields in nature. So I feel this is why it's being picked up on people's, it's within our collective consciousness now, so much stronger. The conversation around waters, everything is so much stronger and alive that I just feel it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing, and that there's going to be a lot more people, and we're just going to be more tapped in, tuned in a way, and there's going to be even more information of other people, what they're experiencing and looking at, and I just feel it. So talking about that, it's just going to grow, and people are just going to naturally go, I'm just going to start. You know, I just think it's just going to become a feeling that this is so natural. That's just it's gonna happen. And I just feel like even with parents, with their children, babies, they're just gonna be, this is what I'm putting on their skin because I've heard this is better, than all the other things. And so the children are gonna be more tapped in and wired in at such an early age. That's how I'm seeing it anyway. I feel it.
I agree, Fiona. I really agree with you there, especially with the children.
Yeah.
I have a few friends that have young children that are like plasma kids, and it's pretty amazing to watch that evolution and that knowledge come into them, and the connection that the mothers have with their kids, which is like totally different, obviously.
A couple of people in my community have small children, and they've worked with them and just demonstrated to them for the last 2-3 years since they met me and I started talking about it and they started doing it. And I don't have kids, but I mean, I talk to kids about it a lot, and they'll say, ooh, they'll show me their conditioning, and then I go, well, around me you can do whatever you want, and they sort of laugh, but they find that funny. But these friends of mine who have kids, one of the things that's interesting is that maybe their kids don't practice every day the way we might, but when their kids get sick, they say, Mom, I want to put my urine on this, or I want to drink my urine. And one person in particular, her kids all got mumps, and she had like three kids, and the oldest child drank all the urine and was over it in a quarter of the time that the two younger ones who didn't drink at all. Now, they still healed really well because their mom was using herbs and she was doing everything holistically and all that stuff. So everyone healed and was very fine and everyone's okay. But the oldest child made the conscious decision for themselves to say, I'm going to use my urine. And then they saw that demonstrated for themselves. And I mean, just having the parent who's open to that, who shows it, demonstrates it, and then the kid can make a decision for themselves and see how well it worked. I thought that was such
really
a beautiful,
powerful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Lee, the viewer that asked that question, says he totally agrees with Fiona. Yeah. With the kids, I had another close friend of mine. She actually, I've had some conversations with her on my YouTube channel, Annabelle. and she's going through right now an experience with her son, a healing experience with her son. And he hasn't been really into, like, he knows that his mom drinks her plasma, and he knows that it's like a medicine. They call it a medicine tea. And he uses it in the garden, and he sees how it's good for the plants, and he knows that his mom sometimes drinks his. So he doesn't go to the bathroom in the toilet. He comes to his mom and he's like, I have something for you. I need a cup to put this into. And then he like kind of like gives it to her as a gift, right? And she sneaks it into his hot chocolate and things like this. So he does take his own. And she has noticed a difference in his plasma since he's been taking his own. But he had this injury, and so she started using his plasma on his injury, and it like changed his relationship with his plasma. He like really saw it on his own body, and it's like, wow, okay, like, yeah, so it's really amazing, and really it's made the bond, the mother-child bond, so close for them. So it's really amazing to see stuff like that, and to see parents like be really gentle, like you were saying, Megan, like be really gentle with their kids of introducing it to them and letting that curiosity evolve in them, and come into it in a more easy, playful way even.
Well, and just what you said too about that offering. One thing where I live, it's the traditional ancestral lands of the Mi'kma'ki are the name of the people who lived here, and their tradition involves generally bringing tobacco as a gift for the earth, right? Depending on what you're doing in ceremony. Corn could also be a gift. But I realized in the past couple of years, I went, wait a minute, my shivambu is the best gift I can give back to the earth.
Yeah,
I
totally.
always have an offering to give the earth. And so in that sense too, Fiona, when you're talking about, the trees were part of the filtration system of water, well, people weren't going in porcelain toilets. Like there was more water being given back to the earth. Never mind the fact that I love this. I say this so often, I guess, just because people ask the question, like, isn't urine going to smell? And I'm like, when you go walking in the forest, how many mammals are in that forest and how many mammals are peeing every day, and the forest does not smell like pee? So... And they're like, oh, and again, it's like click, like,
Yeah.
So we were all peeing on the ground, and the ground was receiving, and the ground was utilizing it, and it was coming back, as you say, like through the whole filtration system of the earth, of the roots, of everything. Like we were more part of that. We're taking our water away, mixing it with chemicals. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the whole septic field is just like
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
septic.
Yeah, it's awful. And that was something that I always like to talk about, is that we are always intimately linked to that fluid, no matter where no matter where it is on the planet, where we've peed, we're intimately linked still with it. It still grows and evolves with us. It still holds information that's really specific to that person in that present day moment. It's always evolving. Same thing with when I talk about like the somatids, the biology in our body, the building blocks. They're everywhere on the planet. They inhabit us, they inhabit the soil, the air, the trees, the whole thing. They go back into creation and form more shape, more power, more beings, more other organisms, plants, trees. It's a divine connection, a loop, like the urine. This is a loop. It's a cyclical loop. We're all in these kind of loops within nature. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you don't cycle your own plasma back, and this is again from that conversation that I heard you had when I heard you have this conversation with Amanda Vollmer, that was it. I was like, okay, if we have extra plasma because we move, and I don't drink all of it back, if there's leftovers, then we actually take it out now and give it to the trees where we're living and at that time before we move on. And yeah, I don't flush it down the toilet, any of it, anymore, or carelessly dispose of it. And actually a lady in Spain, in Majorca, before we left there, we were watering the trees in in the neighborhood we were living in, and one of the ladies followed us down the street and came into the fruit shop that we were buying fruit in. She's like, "Were you poisoning the trees?" Like, no. No, it's not poison. She thought it was some chemical, and Lee's like, "No, you can drink it." It's not,
Well, you look at
no
dogs.
problem.
Oh, sorry. You look at dogs.
Yeah,
They'll
the
pee up a
dogs,
tree,
I
and then
know.
all the other dogs will go to where that dog went because it's this whole electromagnetic
Right.
frequency that's drawing them all in, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, here we go. Add it
I've
here."
seen some crazy things that people have done following their dog when they take their dogs for a walk in the city. Okay, this blew my mind when I saw it. I never saw this before in my life. Okay, they have the bags to pick up the poop, but they had a spray bottle of detergent. And when the dog peed, then they took their spray bottle of detergent and sprayed it on the pee. I was just like, did I just see that? Anyway. So yeah, get the word out. No need.
No.
It's fertilizer.
I've
So crazy.
Yeah, and I've watched my dogs because where we walk them, and also because we have an acre of land that they move within. The areas they pee, sometimes they'll pee where there's specific grass, and they'll pee there, and they'll keep going back to that spot to eat the grass.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
really interesting to watch how, because I was like, oh, they're peeing here. They eat this grass. They've been peeing here for a while. So there's something and also this grass grows a lot bushier, and the blades are wider. So it's interesting to see how they're using their plasma, their relationship with nature, but they're not us talking, they're just the kind of
Right, they're not programmed into thinking it's
that area for them is obviously a place of when we look at medicine, healing, there's something there that they want. It's not just about taking the grass in. There's something else
right.
imbued within the creative force of that grass. Is it
Yeah.
electrical, magnetic that they're attracted to? They'll pee where other dogs have peed because there's a frequency there that they're drawn to, that they're just so tapped in
Yeah.
with the nature of that spot. So, yeah. It's
Well,
interesting.
and the
I know,
hormones, the
Dr.
pheromones,
Dr. Group has talked about gold in plasma. Conscious gold.
Well,
Conscious gold.
and there
Do you
was
know
actually
a bit about that?
a little bit. Well, I just actually put a thing up. He shared something on his Telegram group yesterday, which is a quote from someone else. But I don't know this person who said this, but it was talking about how. So Rosalind Hanson, have you both heard of Rosalind Hanson? Okay. She was very active in some Facebook groups about starting in 2015, 2016, 2017. She lives very off-grid, and I forget where, but is it Wisconsin maybe? But somewhere in that area, maybe toward Michigan, but in that part of the States. She's been doing urine therapy maybe since she was a child on some level, and she studied with a teacher from India who was well known, whose name meant nothing to me. But anyway, Rosalind had aged urine tested in 2003, and it had 6% real gold in it by volume, is the quote.
Whoa.
And there's the edible, what did they say? Edible pictometer size, assumingly, and monoatomic negatively charged gold chloride cell salt is what they're assuming it was. Really super for brain food activity was part of this quote. So that fresh urine can have that much gold in it, but also when it was aged for about 7 months, it grew gold. So how could gold possibly grow in something that was a waste product? So he's saying that in the aged urine, the gold content grew to 13% by volume. So we make our old gold. Now, this is again anecdotal. He's just saying he found in a manuscript from the 1700s to turn urine into minted gold bars, like that could be sold. And it was a massive process, and it was very, complicated, but that some of the ancients actually took urine and made it into gold bars because there was gold in it.
Wow. Well,
I mean,
I don't have a very big problem believing that.
Rosalind
And
Hansen
gold
has
is
a lot
a
of
really
interesting stuff.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to be looking that name up soon.
Now, do you have like specific areas that she posts? Does she?
She hasn't for a long time.
Okay.
But I can share some. I know I have a couple of things I could share with you after. Yeah.
That would be absolutely awesome. Yeah, and to think
Maybe share it in our little group, because I want to see that too.
Yeah. Sure.
yeah, that doesn't
That's wild.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me because it just with and it being, what did you say, like a colloidal salt? Was it?
Yeah.
some
So this
plasma in
quote
that for me
is in
or
our little
something?
discussion. What did they say? It was edible picometer sized and monoatomic negatively charged gold chloride cell salt.
Chloride salt. Okay.
But again, like this
Well,
is just
gold
something I
is
came
like
across. Yeah.
Gold is one of the best transmitters of information.
Right.
Sure. Does it smell okay?
Yeah.
I need a refill. Sorry. I'm like, can you top up my cup? This is like semi-aged, so.
Yeah, it's that whole, that terminology.
Thank you.
In alchemy, like turning lead to gold, and
Yeah.
even if you go back far into Sumerian tech, ancient archaeology, it was all about this relationship with gold and creating gold. I feel like it's so key, and it's right there in the urine. I'm convinced that I see it. It just blows my mind.
So here's a question for you then.
I want to be on the other end of your microscope. Sorry, go ahead,
know.
Megan.
So fun.
So some people filter their evolved and some people don't. And when you're seeing gold, is it in fresh? Is it in evolved? Is it in filtered evolved or not filtered evolved? Does it matter?
Why?
Okay.
No filter. I just don't bother filtering. I just felt like, it's a unified field of information. Why do I want to filter anything off? Because I want to see the full spectrum of everything. So I don't.
In terms of,
sorry, no, go on.
what you're putting in terms of what the urine that you would put on a slide, is that just, it's wherever it comes from, or have you actually done a differentiation between the sediment versus the clear in the middle?
And with looking under a microscope, when there's more sediment, it's just harder to see things. So the clearer. So I don't normally go to the bottom of the sediment. I have looked at sediment, but it's just sediment. So I'll probably hit like the middle or the top layers. I have done different, like go into the middle, mix it round for a while. Is there a difference? What changes? So I don't really see much different and change. No, I'm just wondering because of this. Like I didn't filter for like 3 years. I've been doing evolved for 6 years now. And I didn't filter at first, and then I started filtering, and I prefer to filter now because I find, especially not when it's younger, but like I have some jars that are 4 years old, and at that point they're much easier to maintain when I filter them. They stop producing sediment after a while. It's like they've ripened, they've gotten to that point. And I also used all the sediment for 3 years, and I haven't noticed a difference, is the other thing. Like I used to rub the sediment on my body, I would drink the sediment, I used it, and then when I didn't use it, I didn't notice a difference. So I'm just curious. We're always curious, right? What happened when you did this? And
The sediment to me is like an exfoliator. You know, it's like doing a sugar scrub or something
Yeah.
like that. But I usually now, like, because I don't filter and I did before, but now I usually like pour off the top, and I'll let my plasma evolve for a little while and like shake it up and whatever, and then after a while I'll pour it off the top and then get rid of the sediment and then like roll it through like that kind of. So that's how I'm sort of dealing with the sediment.
Yeah, it's kind of like a scrubber internally too. And so what I've noticed with some samples that have dried, because I always like think of like there's still an alchemical process going on, you know, even when it's dried down and it's crystallized. Like some of the different, I've had different colors, different types of crystals. Some are just like pure green crystals, and some are totally clear. You know, on some level, there's still some alchemical benefit within that, however it's used, you know, whether it's, you know, diluted in more urine and put back onto the land, you know, for plants and things like that, or just used in a different way with the body. And even, I mean, I've only like been looking at it for 3 years, and, you know, even trying to do an experiment, it spans a whole time, and I only feel like I've looked at like such a small window, that there's so much to do, and there's only like so much I can actually like physically do as one person. That like somebody said to me, they were like, "Oh my God, you need like 2 or 3 assistants," and I'm like, I know, I need.
Tell me about
I
it.
want to like a whole lab with like a whole team, and people are working like, you know, on real like specific things, because there's so much still to learn and observe and watch,
Yeah.
and things change so quickly as well, you know. So
One thing too, so Darlene, who couldn't join us today, but we'll have a conversation with her another day. She had looked under her microscope at one point. She was looking at aging urine and noticed 2 things. So she was looking at some of the sediment, and she saw there was like a bacterium, she called it, a cell, I don't know what I don't know, but so she said a stem cell then encased the bacterium, like it completely like looked like it ate it. It went around it, and then it became heavy and it dropped to the bottom. So
Interesting.
it was like some of the stem cells in the urine were separating out some of the bacteria or bacterium as the urine was evolving. But it didn't make it bad. She wasn't like there. It's not like the sediment is a bad thing. It's like the sediment has stem cells. There's a stem cell that just went and grabbed something and did something with it. But then there's also that intelligence. So we always talk about how intelligent it is. So whatever it's doing has a purpose.
Yeah, nature is not mute. Nature has an intelligence.
yeah, and I
Obviously.
don't know what a stem cell looks like under a microscope or anything like that, but I have seen a relationship with something, and I don't know what it is. So where it does grab something, I'll kind of bang it round for a bit, you know, until it starts. And I just like, I have no idea, you know, what's going on. But to me, it's like, well, something's happening. There's a process. There's a relationship here where something's being transmuted or transformed to something different. You know, so I have seen that, but I don't know what a stem cell actually looks like. So I'd be curious to know what type of microscope.
Yeah, I'm curious if there is actually such thing, like we call it a stem cell, but like to actually see the actual real and not a computer generated idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, and DNA is sort of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
but, you know, as soon as you started talking about that, Megan, it reminded me of the way they use crushed moringa seeds to purify water, which does the same thing. It like encases the impurities in the water and pulls it down to the bottom. So super interesting. It's like a purification happening in the jar with just your plasma. It's just amazing. crazy.
Yeah, it's freaking,
Makes sense
it's so
that
wonderful.
that evolution process is like a purification. It's like a higher purification process. Like fermentation is like that. When you ferment something, it like breaks things down into smaller particles and creates new things and detoxifies. In that process, there's a detoxification that happens.
Process of alchemy that's constantly going on within that medium, and
Yeah.
it's outside the body too. Because that's another question I get from people. Oh, do you keep it covered? What's your process? You know, because there's so many different ways to store it, keep it. With the environment, that's kind of something mine's always in like a bowl, and it always goes outside. You know, I have it in the morning sun and the elements. I don't cover it up, and I don't find anything goes in it and does anything weird, and it gets to stay all day, and I will still drink that. Because to me, it's kind of interacting with the element of the air and all other kind of things are going on, and I just have total faith
Yeah.
in it
I
in that way.
I have found bugs in mine before when I've left it open for the day, but I also like this is like I've got like 50 liters in the room next to me, and it, most of it's
Love it.
at least a year. Most of it's at least a year old, if not older, at this point. But they're like big jars, like what are they? 64. They don't say it in liters. It's like 64 ounces. So what is that? Is it like 2 liters? 4 liters? Anyway, maybe it's 4 liters. Anyway, they're big, the big mason jars. And they, occasionally I will find not so much like a house fly. Like I've maybe found that once or twice because they're bigger. They tend to somehow realize that's not going to help them. But like if there's fruit flies in the house, the fruit flies dive in and that's the end of them. And a few times, like once last year and once this year, in a few jars, I think they were moths, because there's moths in the summer where I live. It's a very humid place, and there tend to be moths. And there were just larvae just
Wow.
around the top. But what also happens is if they stay there, eventually they die because it's so alkaline that they can't survive in that place.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing where on the one hand, the original insect is like, ooh, this is a good medium to grow things in. This is very productive. Like life can flourish with this. And so it does give the eggs and the larvae enough to get going. But then at a certain point, it also then is too much for them.
Yeah.
It's too powerful for that small organism to actually get to the point where it can live. So I don't worry about it. Like you're saying, you don't worry about it being outside. I don't worry about it if that happens, but I have had that experience like twice. Again, in 6 years of evolving it, I've had that happen twice. So it doesn't happen often. And that's
We
when I'm
just
leaving
had
them
a-
open to the air. Yeah.
I usually cover everything. Like, and well, I have some open stuff, but I've never actually found any fly in my plasma, just strangely enough, although there are flies around.
Again, only a couple times have it's not,
Yeah.
it really doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
I haven't as long term as you, and I definitely don't have I'm moving around too much to have 50 liters, although I did in Lao. I had
Yeah.
a lot. I left behind a lot of plasma in Lao 'cause there was 2 of us in that household. But we just had another question pop up from a different viewer, and which I thought was a great one, so I'm going to ask it now, and we'll start with you, Fiona, this time. What magic have you found possible? Obviously referring to your plasma. What magic have you found possible?
Answer that question.
Yeah, in a way.
wait for a minute.
What sort of surprised you maybe the most, like in your personal, like it with your body?
Oh, for me
like a
personally.
transformation.
Well, the level of healing so I'm 57 years old. I'm like hitting 50, you have all not that you have all these things, but there was all these issues that I was just thinking, oh, this must be old age, because I've had this really this health journey, that I've been on, and transforming, and like, oh, it's just old age. Because that's something I've learned with the blood work, looking at cells, is how people age and how people die. There's certain ways that the body breaks down, there's certain molds, there's certain pathways that people go. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm arthritic, my blood presents in that way. So once I started with the urine therapy and looking at my blood, I noticed that I wasn't as arthritic. But so what I was noticing personally, but then about myself, is my energy level, the healing, that I don't get sick. I just don't get sick. I have a high level of energy. I don't have fatigue, light anymore. I don't have back issues. The list just goes on and on, which were all these things, like even arthritic lumps on my body, in the joints, all those dissolved. So it was just the dissolving of dis-ease, disharmony in the body for full rejuvenation, regeneration physically in my body, but also then the way thoughts, emotions, beliefs, the way my attention changed, where I was putting my attention changed completely. The length of time then that I started spending in nature, the need to be outside, grounded with my feet, the need to want to sleep outside and look at the stuff. I just found that my life was just shifting and changing, and the level of stress that left, that there's a magic in like the relaxation that urine brings to the mind and the body. And then for me, just like, physically, that was just how I felt. I felt like a child again. I just felt so again, just like free, like this, like I could take in a full breath, and that I could really be in my experience with this life and enjoy it and feel that it's going to continue being enjoyed, that I don't have this loop that's like, oh, well, you're this age now. Oh, no, you're this. Like, I'm like I was looking in the mirror the other day and I was looking at my skin and and it's like my body said, you're going to look like that when you're 70. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. Because I always wish like I'd found it earlier. Like in my 30s. Oh my God. But I'm like, I'm okay. I'm like, I can still feel and live like this into my 80s, because I look at like my parents and all like my lineage of how they all are at 80. Like, I don't know anybody that's lived over 85 in my family yet. So I'm watching the progression of ill health and disease within my family unit. I'm like, no, not for me. I don't choose that, it's really like just, so that, I don't know if that answers the question, physically.
I think it does beautifully,
The
because that
magic.
whole process is magical. When you experience it, it really feels like just something you never thought possible, and something unexplainable, really. I mean, we're sitting here trying to put words into all of this, but we really don't know what the hell a stem cell really actually is, or DNA, or the cell, for that matter.
Does that even exist? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. But what I do know from my own experience, pretty magical experience. Lee and I plugged in our old hard drive the other day and we're looking through some pictures, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like 3 years ago, totally. Like, I look at the image and I'm just like, okay, first of all, like the texture of everything is completely different, but the mindset is, like a total rebirth has occurred.
Yeah.
And it's not just we're sipping our morning plasma. Like Fiona, you were doing like wrapping yourself in how people would use castor oil. You were using that same sort of concept, like packing it, doing the packs, right?
Yeah.
On your body. You got to really engage to get results like that, but they are achievable. Pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
it's incredible.
So, Megan, go ahead. What magic have you found
Oh,
possible?
well, I mean, I think Fiona said a lot of it in terms of just things that you don't anticipate. I started working with Shivambu when I was 35. I'm 47. And I don't know. This is the other thing. I don't know what I would look like if I hadn't done that. I don't know how I
Jeez.
would feel if I hadn't done that. Other than, interestingly, I had a palm reading from a man who'd done over 3,000 palm readings. And he, while looking at my palm, said, "Have you changed your diet yet?" Was like, "Oh, I'm vegetarian." Like, he's like, "No, no, no, that's not enough. Like, there's another piece here." And he's like, "If you don't do this, you're going to get really sick." But he didn't know what it was either. He just was like, it's more than that. And now I look back and I'm like, that's interesting. I think maybe that's part of, I do think that's part of what he was talking about. Like, you're going to radically change
Yeah.
what you need as nourishment.
Yeah.
So actually, you want to see, okay, magic. That is a piece of magic for me. I started having digestive problems at the age of 6. Nobody could find a reason for it. I went through testing from the age of 6 till I was 12, 13, 14, 15. I started developing all these problems. And even as a child, like just infections, tonsillitis every year, sinus infections, redness on my face, rashes, all these different things. When I was 26 and living in London, I went to a doctor who said, "Why don't you try going off wheat?" Because I had red skin on both sides of my face. It was worst on the left, all the way down. And
Wow.
it looked like a rash and it looked hot, but it was actually not hot. It was very dry and bumpy, but it was red bumps. And it was getting worse. And he said, "Why don't you try going off wheat?" So I went off wheat, didn't think it would work. Lo and behold, it did work. It took about a year for my skin on my face to heal because, of course, the gut was part of that. I haven't had tonsillitis since I stopped eating wheat when I was 26. It's been 21 years. I've never had tonsillitis again. I don't have the same thing that Fiona's talking about in terms of like, I do still get colds. I had just had a flu recently where I had a fever for a couple days. But now when I get them, I start fasting. I drink all my urine. I go into this state of acceptance. I used to fight it. Anyway, the point about the magic, though, is about the food. Food was such a big thing because I realized I could heal myself with food, that food could be medicine or food could be a problem, that there was power and that I was part of it. When I stopped eating wheat, I realized this was a relationship. But I was somebody who, because I'd had all these digestive problems, I was so conscious of what I was eating. And was it going to affect me? Was it not going to affect me? And I was eating like 6 little meals a day. And I always had food in my purse, like, fruit or dried fruit or nuts or something, granola bars. I was always conscious of when I was going to get my next meal. Couldn't fast. I would go into immediate cramping and pain, discomfort, couldn't do it. Tried a few times in my 20s. And the woman who taught me Shivambu, Shakti Mai, my yoga teacher who'd been doing Shivambu for 30 years when I met her, she's now been doing it for over 40 years. She also taught me about fasting and about liver cleansing. And so I tried to do a liver cleanse a year after I started doing Shivambu because of her guidance. And all of a sudden I was like, I can do this. What changed? And I'd been doing Shivambu for a year by the time I tried doing a liver cleanse. And so the magic now is that over time, and this doesn't happen to everybody, or it doesn't happen on the same schedule for everybody, let's put it that way. I have gone from 3 meals a day, plus needing to snack, otherwise I would be in pain, to 2 meals a day, to now my body is pushing hard for 1. If I even try to eat 1 meal plus fruit, it's like it wants to shut me down. It's not, and it's because I'm getting so much nourishment from the Shivambu. It's because my body has changed how it's producing energy, where it's getting energy from, how it, when I put food in it, it's like it's
Work.
It's work. It's a lot of work.
It's like, again.
Yeah. And so then it's also, what kind of food am I putting in? When am I putting it in? What is the quality of it? Why am I doing it? And that has been magic. I would never in my 20s or 30s have ever said that it would be possible for me to do the kind of fasting that I've done. Water fasting, urine fasting, juice fasting, fruit fasting, different things. It's just impossible. So the magic is that I have a different body. It is different. It is not the same body I had before. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And inner trust. I'll come back to that, like different ways of putting it. But that sense of inner trust, interconnectedness, intelligence, like you flip an inner switch of an interconnected intelligence that was always there in your body. But again, it's like you turn it on.
Yeah.
Yep. All out.
When people start drinking their urine too, they're like, I don't know if this is very nice. And I said, the first urine you drink will never be the nicest. The first urine you put in a bottle to age will never be the nicest. The more you do it, the nicer it will get. And the fact, Fiona, that you're seeing that is so fantastic confirmation.
Yes.
The more you work with this, the nicer it gets.
Exactly. I used to do that in the beginning because I had to, for some reason, I don't know why, I had to watch myself in the mirror drinking it. And I'd be going, and after a while, I'm like, why am I pulling a face? That's like, I'm like, I had to like, so it was good confirmation, just this relationship with the urine. And to talk about like health, we all heal in a different way. It's kind of like our healing goes backwards. The body works on what is needed right now. Where does that energy need to go? Okay, dealt with that. Okay, what's deeper in the tissues? The body's going to work backwards with, like, I've been a sick child from childhood. So I've watched how I do go backwards to a time or a state of like, oh, I'm here. I'm at that age of like when I was 6 years old, constant vomiter, because I went through an experience of like vomiting all the time. So my body was, having like these memories, this association of like, for me, that's healing. And I think of like us as the trees, that we're also vessels for cleansing and cleaning the environment. It's not, there's this whole two-way thing going on. So having a fever, these things that is the body cleansing, we're cleansing the earth too. We're also cleansing our ancestral lineage. There's so much that we are always going to be working on because of the environments that we live in. So it's like I had headaches the other day, so I was just drinking my urine because I know, okay, it helps, but I'm not like fixating of like, oh, why am I getting sick? It's not like a sickness. It's like, okay, there's a relationship of like, there's still cleansing here. There's no perfect body on this planet right
We're
now.
mirrors to the environment.
Yeah, so to be aware that there's all kinds of subtle energies and relationships that are going on. And talking about magic, so this is one of mine. So I'm really conscious of my teeth because my story is, I was swigging the aged urine in the beginning and all my amalgams fell out. I was spitting bone everywhere. So, but this was just my journey for this magic, that I have watched my enamel grow back, because these were things that I thought, when you think, oh, that's not even possible. So I know that enamel can grow back. It's not a fast process for me anyway. It's slow, because I look at like my timeline, even as a child, with the dentist and teeth and all the invasive things that have been done to my mouth and that area. So it's a slower process, but I'm like, it grows back. It does grow back. And you don't need to go and get that hole filled in, because the urine will manage the pain over that period of time as the enamel is growing back into on the teeth. So magic everywhere. And for me, the magic is like when I see like that sacred geometry and mandalas appear in people's urine. For me, that's the biggest thing with working with a client with this work with the urine. It's like, here is, so the geometry you were showing, the flower, I see that flower so often in the evolved urine, people that drink their urine. And funny, the pentagon symbol has been coming up in my mind, because I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a pentagon. But then I'm like, am I seeing it from a different angle? Because there's so many different angles where the images are being shown from. But for me to give that image, that inner image to somebody else, like, okay, this is what we saw in your plasma. You know, they're getting to have this transmission with this image that's their image. It's tuned into them, it's specific to them, and they get to like be with that image, to have, you know, to gaze at the image, to stare at the image, to create this relationship within themselves and their own plasma. To me, that's like, this is where the gift of this work, like messages in urine, is actually going for me. It's like to be able to work with someone and go, here, this is for you. This is for you to, it's a healing image. It's a sacred image, you know, and it's
Totally.
personal to you. So yeah, these
Beautiful.
images, this geometry, because I was like the other day, it was like, oh, God is geometry. That's how everything's created, through these sacred images. So here they are in our
Beautiful.
plasma. Yay.
Yeah, where else would they be? When I first came into this knowledge, I was like, of course, that's how we would be designed, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, so beautiful. I'm going to wrap up the talk now. And just, Megan, you want to share anything that you're,
Oh,
anything?
I mean, the only thing that was sort of coming to me a little bit, the other part that is just, I guess, it's physical body a little bit, but you see how much your body likes your urine, likes it, it absorbs it. I've never saturated my skin to the point that it won't take more. It's never started pooling on my skin and falling off me. You know, like the skin will just keep going.
Yeah.
It likes it. And that creates a sense of gratitude to the body and to the self and to the entire design. And that creates a sense of gratitude for being here. And that then takes you towards self-love. And you can't, I don't think you can do urine therapy practice and hate yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
It's going to, if you have, and we all have some of that in us. We all have a bit of, you know, conditioning from this lifetime, other lifetimes, other things, ancestry, you name it. We have conditioning. But this will start dissolving the conditioning, because you can't keep hating yourself and doing this practice. And that is magic, because it's gentle. There's this gentleness. Urine will go in hard and fast and destroy the bad stuff if we really jump in, and it will do that. But it has this gentleness simultaneously of working with us where we're at.
Yeah.
And that is such a beautiful thing. So what I feel like when I talk to the, you know, we're sitting here and I'm looking at our three faces, and it's like, I could talk to these people forever. This is so great.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
eh?
And
I really want to make
Yeah.
a regular show of this. Sorry.
yeah, no, just that, I think that's another piece. That's another piece of the magic. It's real gratitude. It's real self-love.
Exactly.
It's not just an affirmation someone gives you to say. This comes from within.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Oh, who? Everyone? Fiona, what are you working on right now?
The gold.
If,
I just kind of finished this whole gold thing, so that's what I'm working on. That's kind of like a very cool thing. I would love to like share that, have a deeper conversation, show you my images and different things around that.
oh, let's do that for next time. If you want to prepare that, that would be awesome. And I would definitely be into hosting that.
Yeah.
And Megan, if you want to.
Yeah. Yes, I'd be either, both. I have a channel as well, depending on how many places you want to say that over and over again. We can do
Right.
a couple different ones and get it on different channels.
Yeah, it'd be
Cool.
wonderful. And just with that everything that you shared, it's like what I found was it tapped me into like nature and animals in such a more of a intimate, connected way, where I felt I was trusted. Like that, they were like welcoming me back into that space of like, oh, there wasn't the threat of me anymore. because I had a journey with a horse that I'd been trying to give an apple to for years, to come to the fence. Oh, come, get an apple. And I think I was about 6 months in. I had my hair wrapped up in urine. It was soaking, and I went the fence. And for the first time, that horse came over. And what it did, it didn't go for the apple. It shoved its nose onto my head and was and I was like, when you're in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is it. The horse knows. So we have a relationship now.
Wow.
It's beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, it's information for them. So there's like some intimacy right away.
Well, also like you're you. The real you showed up, not the you with some perfumed this or fabric softener that.
Oh my God.
Right? Like
Yeah.
animals show up as they are. And so we're animals when they're like, oh, I get you now. I know who you are. I can smell you.
Yeah.
I can sense you. You're all of that. That's all of that. Like I love that story. That's beautiful.
I can trust you. Yeah, it was really fascinating.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, ladies, once again, Fiona and Megan, and I hope to do many more of these. So many blessings.
Thank you,
Thank
Anna
you.
and Lee. Wonderful. Thank you for creating this.